Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the Binghamton City Council work session, 1st of March, 2023, City Council chambers at City Hall, 6 p.m. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Clerk will call the roll. Mr. Clerk.
Councilwoman Bresnetti,
Present.
Councilwoman Riley,
Present.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Present.
Councilman Burns is absent. Councilman Strawn,
Present.
Councilman Scanlon,
Present.
and President Scaringi.
Present.
That's 6 here, 1 absent. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. At this time, the will establish a public hearing. Mr. Clerk. Yes. Do the public hearing. Get that after.
Yes, I'll do that. So the city of Binghamton will hold a public hearing regarding RL 23-33, an ordinance to amend the zoning map to rezone portions of Henry Street, Fayette Street, Pine Street, Lewis Street, and Liberty Street in accordance with the Stadium District Master Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. At this time, I will recognize Councilwoman Bresnetti for the purpose of a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes from the February 8th, 2023 business meeting.
Do I hear a second? Motion by Councilwoman Bresnetti, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed signify by saying nay. Minutes are approved. Thank you very much. At this time, we will enter into public comment. Residents wishing to submit public comment may do so electronically by emailing their comments prior to 1 p.m. on the day of the meeting to clerk@cityofbinghamton.gov. That's clerk@cityofbinghamton.gov, or in person during the meeting. At this time or this evening, we do have Okay. I will take that back. Let the record show Councilman Burns is present. I will open up a public hearing for the city of Binghamton, which will hold it in relation to RL 23-33, an ordinance to amend the zoning map to rezone portions of Henry Street, Fayette Street, Pine Street, Lewis Street, and Liberty Street in accordance with the Stadium District Master Plan. All of those wishing to come forward and speak on anything germane to that topic, you will have 5 minutes. I apologize for misreading that earlier. Seeing no one stepping forward for the public hearing, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Do I hear a second? Motion by Councilman Strawn, seconded by Councilman Burns to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Public hearing is closed. Corp Council, thank you for the correction. At this time, we will move forward with public comment. Again, residents wishing to submit public comment may do so electronically by emailing their comments prior to 1 p.m. on the day of the meeting to clerk@cityofbinghamton.gov, or in person during the meeting. There are 3 public comments that were received electronically that Councilwoman Friedman has been kind enough to read into the record. At this time, given the proportion of individuals in the meeting, I will open it up to the floor. Anybody who would like to speak, you have 5 minutes to do so on any topic, and please identify whether you live or work in the city of Binghamton. Sir, please. And sir, respectfully, just to make sure everyone can hear you, there's a little button on the front of the microphone. If you press it, you'll see a green light turns on. That means your microphone is on. the microphones are very sensitive. If you could keep it as close to your mouth as possible, just so us and people watching can hear you. And you have 5 minutes. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Phil Shanahan and I live in the town of Union, but I work sometimes in the city of Binghamton. I am a union construction worker, sheet metal worker, and I'm also the president of the Broome Tioga Central Labor Council. And I want to talk today about Resolution 23.10, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with Genuine Parts Company, Napa, to provide integrated business solutions. I do not agree with this. I believe that the workforce that you have can properly do it. We'll say some more training per se. I got to have a good inventory. I watched a YouTube video and listened to it with Napa spokesman coming. What's saying that they can do better than what you got? Some training, maybe hire someone with some experience, a lot of experience with it. I know it can be difficult with supply and like to keep a tight ship. I was in the Navy, so I know all about supply and inventory, and we never hired out. You did your job when you're out to sea or in port. And I think that the workers at the DPW can do just a fine job that they're doing. I believe Napa, I don't like privatizing anything, especially in the city, county government, state. What's saying that they can't do a better job and charge more? You know, they might do a worse job and charge more. And there's no guarantee on that. I know I listened to the YouTube video and, you know, there's a period to try it out but I'll just put some notes down from why can't only employees already hired to order parts or train the system make adjustments to inventory instead of hiring Napa? Have city employees get more training instead of privatize the workforce. City doesn't need Napa for a more efficient mechanic's office and more vehicles on the road. The city can do it just fine. We don't know if Napa can do a better job, but we do know they want more business from the city of Binghamton. So he owns 7 stores and he's going to get a great inventory person and move them into the city. I think the workers in there can do it just fine. And if they need more training, just that's all I got to say. Make it happen, I guess. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your time. Appreciate it. Any other individuals that would like to come forward to speak during public comment? Please. Good evening, ma'am. If you could please ensure that you can speak into the microphone as best as you can, and if you could please identify whether you work or live in the city of Binghamton. You have 5 minutes to speak on any topic, and the floor, ma'am, is yours. Yeah, should show a little green light.
Green button.
Yeah, there you go.
Always a good sign. All right. Good afternoon, and pardon me that I'm a bit out of breath. This is my first one in person, so my name is Dr. Misty Kirby. I both live and work in the city of Binghamton. I have been working in the city of Binghamton since September 2021. And we finally closed on our house November 2021 on the south side. So I might just literally take 5 seconds to take a breath. Whew. All right, big day at work. All right, so thank you for having this public meeting. I also watched the meeting on Tuesday. I've been watching several via YouTube since I've moved here. So thank you for that transparency. Not always in city government, so it's been refreshing to see that. It's helped me get a feel for where I am and the kind of city where I live. So I am, as you might be able to tell from my voice now that my voice is calmed a little. I'm not from around here. I grew up in South Mississippi, but I moved to New York in 1999. I moved to Dutchess County and moved down to the city after I was there for several years. And then after a couple of years in the city, my partner and I left to go to Virginia for me to pursue my doctorate at the College of William and Mary. And so that feels like a lifetime ago now. Once I finished my doctorate in education policy, planning and leadership, we moved to Australia, where we lived for a decade. I highly recommend anytime you are up for a 16-hour plane ride, Australia is your place. I was an assistant professor of education there. I've since taken sabbatical, lived in Hong Kong for a while. My point is that I've traveled widely. I've lived in San Diego, I've lived in Virginia, I've lived in a lot of places across the US and Michigan. Trying to forget that one. So this is where I'm coming from, just so you know a little bit about me, because this won't be the last time you see me. So my family and I came to Binghamton very specifically. We wanted to return to New York whenever we had to leave Australia during the coronavirus. So where to go? We're both highly skilled and we both believe strongly in giving to our community. My husband doing, being an operations manager at a food cooperative and working in food security. These are the kinds of things that are important to us. So we wanted to be in a place where those skills were needed, and they're needed in Binghamton. So to learn the city as quickly as possible, I'm in my second year at teaching 7th grade middle school at West English, and it's a very quick way to get to understand a city very quickly. I do have 24 years of classroom experience, but half of that teaching university. So it's been a bit of an adjustment, shall I say, from teaching doctoral level students to teaching 7th grade English. So my point is that living abroad for as long as we did, it's provided us with a different perspective that can't be duplicated nor compared with someone who has lived in a place all their life, or with someone who is unable to sort of acknowledge the inevitable change that happens around us. A quote that I always tell my students is that change is inevitable, but growth is optional. So I'm going to go easy on you today. Just 2 things. Number 1, snow plowing and the lack of it. On Saturday, on the 25th of February, when we had the snow, our street never got plowed on Saturday or Sunday. We're on a hill. And so Sunday morning, it was a sheet of ice until 10 a.m. So I live in District 6. So, which was odd because a couple of weeks ago when we had a storm, we had the plows coming 5 times. Yesterday, just twice. So we're lucky that we're on a dead end street and we have amazing neighbors. We're a mix of homeowners and renters. And so we need communication with the workers. We need communication with the public. I went on the website. There was no one to contact, no phone number, or there was a phone number, but no one answered. So we need to have some sort of better public interface when we have
1 minute left.
this. 1 minute?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
And the last one is trash. We need more public receptacles. So likely we need to, up public works, even though from Monday's meeting, things look like they haven't been very easy there. But I think this is partially to do with the regressive, wasteful, environmentally unsustainable city bag tax that I have never in 3 continents seen anything like it. Couldn't we stop sending so much money to the cops and maybe send that money toward public works? Pay for beautifying our city. We all live here. Not just the nice neighborhoods, the ones that don't have sidewalks, but neighborhoods like mine on the south side. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak for public comment? Chair seeing none. Councilwoman Friedman, you are recognized for reading the electronic submissions into the record. I appreciate you volunteering for that.
Thank you, President Scrungy. I am excited to do so. All right, the first one is as follows. I think that the rationale behind privatizing is pretty much always going to be as follows. 1, lower costs. 2, more efficient operations. My generalized arguments against the above points. 1, lower costs. A, why exactly are costs lower? Partially because for the most part, employees aren't paid as well and don't have the same amount of protections or benefits at work. Items can be bought that were produced with slave labor, legal corners can be more easily cut, et cetera, et cetera. B, how much longer can we assume that costs will be lower? Yes, in the short term, privatizing may be cost saving, but why should we assume that a private company will not try to maximize profits in the long term? The success of capitalist economies rely on competition, and right now this private company's competition is the government. Once the government no longer has the capacity to perform the former function that it privatized the demand for, this good/service becomes more inelastic, allowing the company to drive up prices as it wishes without facing drops in demand, just like insulin, just like missiles. Number 2, more efficient operations. Yes, capitalism drives efficiency and certain innovation, but at a certain point, I think we need to ask ourselves, is it really worth it? Did smartphones really better humanity? How about streaming networks? Were we not initially promised all of our favorite 22 episode season shows in one place without commercials for cheaper? Now we pay more than cable for all of our subscriptions that all have ads for 6 episode seasons. Is this increase in efficiency really needed? Or is this just a way to incentivize privatization? Whose life will be easier from these improvements? Once things are private, the government will never choose to use the funding to reverse the decision. So you have to make sure that motivation is with pure intention. That's from Megan Cary, who lives in the city of Binghamton. All right, the second comment. While watching the city council work session last week, I noticed that Ms. Goodson was not speaking the truth when Ms. Riley asked her about auditing an inventory in the central garage. I was running the part room in the garage all by myself for a year. I filed a complaint with the union after speaking with Ms. Goodson numerous times about hiring/replacing another worker for me. She finally posts the job and there are numerous candidates applying for it. Interviews are set up and somehow Chuck stops it and goes a different route. Next thing I know, they brought a girl named Irada down to my office. Both Chuck and Billy told me she would be the best addition to me because she has experience with inventory and she worked for the auto parts before. I believed everything Chuck and Billy told me until I see Irada in action. So I asked Irada about her job background and how did she get here when they removed the posting. She told me she got hired through a temporary agent. Needless to say, that is a violation of civil service law. My job title is test position, so I contacted the union. Not only did Ms. Goodson lie to the union that no one applies for the job, but there are 4 different well-qualified candidates that applied for the job. John from Fiduki, Matt from CarQuest, Vinny from United Auto Parts, etc. Bob Firmstone did call and confirm with those candidates that they did apply. We have some issues in the garage with Mr. DeRose harassing the storekeepers. I have Ms. Goodson coming down to handle the situation before getting out of hand. As we are in the middle of discussing, Irada asked Ms. Goodson a question about her status. Ms. Goodson clearly stated to Irada that she is not my equal, and that is how Irada gave the city 2 weeks notice. Irada's number is blank. I don't think I'm going to read that into the record. Okay. Please call and verify the information. I have no benefit from doing this. I just want to save taxpayers' money and protect jobs for other union members. I'm hoping all of our city councilmen do the right thing by voting no to this. I have all the witnesses to back up my statement. Sincerely yours, just another concerned taxpayer. All right, and the last comment. I am not able to attend the meeting in person tonight, but it does not change my stance on the sale of the property at 77 Pine Street. As I have said more than once, the size and scope of the building is not appropriate in the neighborhood. While Pine Street is a low-income neighborhood, we are not disposable. People that live here work in the city. We contribute financially through taxes and our paychecks also going back into the economy of the city. We have neighborhood cleanup events, decorate our homes for holidays, and enjoy our space to the best of our ability. Sophia was kind enough to finally mention at the last meeting that the sale of several city lots will cost $1. As I have spoken to several of my neighbors, we are each willing to chip in. I personally have $20 to pay for the lot at 77 Pine Street. That would return the lot to the tax rolls, and I would even pay the taxes. No development deal required. Surely the city would not turn down a higher bid. I think it is important for the city to remember, and all of the city council members to note, people in the city that do not look like you or sit in your same tax brackets are not disposable. We are all people that want to work together to make our neighborhoods enjoyable. It is hard to make a neighborhood enjoyable when your home is constantly being encroached on. When you determine that people are disposable, homes are disposable, and families are disposable, you are making the picture clear. The word of what you are doing today is called gentrification. Call it what it is on the agenda. Have the day you deserve, from Kathy Staples, 79 Pine Street.
Thank you, Councilman, for reading those into the record. Thank you for those who came down tonight and spoke during public comment, as well as those who submitted electronically information to be read into public comment as well. Seeing no one else and having no other be read to the record, we will move forward with second read legislation at this time. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Rezanetti for the purposes of a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consideration for introductory ordinance 23-28. It's an ordinance authorizing the sale of 180-186 Henry Street, 70 St. Pine Street, and 162 Henry Street, the Kearney Realty and Development Group, Inc. for $1.
Do I hear a second? Motion by Councilwoman Rezanetti, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. Please keep in mind, just to get this on the record, that two factors to remember. Number one, this is second read legislation. Number two, at the last meeting, the seeker that was required for the unlisted negative declaration was already conducted. Councilwoman Rezanetti made those motions and they all passed into the record. It's also important for the body to remember that as this is the sale of land, it does require a vote in the affirmative of 3/4, which would be 6 out of 7 members. That being said, colleagues, discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scaringi. Since the last meeting, I did a little lit drop in my neighborhood, and it was a little quarter sheet, and it said, in short, the city's planning to rezone and sell this property to a development group for a private for an affordable housing complex. How do you feel about it? And I said, you can contact me or circle one and leave it in my mailbox. And I talked to some people in person while I was dropping these off. And the reception was neutral to negative. I have not encountered anyone who is enthusiastic about this project. The most positive response I heard from anyone in that neighborhood was, "It's fine, I guess. Sure." Which for a significant project like this does not inspire confidence in me. So there have been numerous concerns that have been brought up regarding this project, some of which have been ameliorated, some of which have not, including the change to the character of the neighborhood. And, I understand where my constituents and neighbors are coming from with this. The height of the building where it would tower over some of the neighboring houses is problematic. And I obviously affordable housing is so, so important, but also I was hired by a few hundred people, and I represent a lot more than that. And my job is to represent them. We're elected officials, and so it's my job to vote in the way that they are asking me to. Of course, I would never vote for something that I find to be unethical, obviously. But in this case, I do feel like it's my job to represent their opinions. If any one of my neighbors on Pine Street or Henry Street was sitting in my seat right now, what would they do? And that's what's informing my vote today. So I will be voting against the sale of this property. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other discussion? Seeing none, is the question called? Question's been called. Mr. Clerk?
Councilwoman Resnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Nay.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
President Scaringi.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes, 1 nay, Friedman.
Thank you very much. At this time, Chair recognizes Councilwoman Resnetti for the purposes of a motion, introductory resolution 23-10.
Thank you. I ask for unanimous consideration for introductory resolution 23-10, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Genuine Parts Company, Napa, to provide integrated business solutions.
Do I hear a second? Motion by Councilwoman Resnetti, seconded by Councilman Strawn. Colleagues, discussion. Councilman Burns.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank Mr. Shanahan for coming in and speaking tonight. And I agree with him 100% that I don't see why if we want to change the system at the storeroom, why don't we just change the system and teach the current employees the new system? So that's how I feel about it. I've spoken against it several times, and I wish I could change it some minds. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other discussion? Councilwoman Riley.
No, go ahead. You're first. I'll be quick.
Councilman Scanlon,
Mr. President,
please.
I was on the fence about this, but with Mr. Merkel, who's been involved with the Public Works for a number of years, he's now the Public Works Commissioner, in favor of this. I certainly am going to yield to him in his decision, and I'm going to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President Scaringi. I'd like to echo the sentiments of Mr. Shanahan, who spoke earlier, as well as the representatives that have come previously from the union, Bob Firmstone. This problem is bigger than what we're discussing. And I think everyone around this table has recognized not only have there been systemic issues within the governance of City Hall, but in terms of the management of DPW. And since we've been holding public comment and a lot of discourse on camera, we have gotten calls, letters, emails daily about the issue that seeps throughout that entire department. And those of you that were willing to listen to your neighbors, which they've told me they've reached out to many of you, your friends, you recognize that every time certain people came to our table, the story changed. There was never accountability from those that have been in place for the entire time the issue grew. We received information that there's been a problem for 5 to 10 years, yet people that were in place and in charge per the chart never accepted responsibility for such. And when we requested information to show this substantial gain or the substantial benefit from a sole source contract, those of you that looked at the Excel document saw that that was not a significant savings. What it did allow is a release of the overhead that's in DPW. So yes, I will agree with that fact. The problem still remains that there is an issue within a department that we have employees that are not willing to come on record for fear of retaliation. Yet we continue to pass the buck as to who's responsible for this inaccuracy in the system that it continued for 5 to 10 years. And when I asked about the issues that continued for 5 to 10 years, we tried to pin it on several ideas. We talked about several ideas. And everyone can go back to the tape when I said it's like purchasing a Lamborghini. And we don't know what to do with the Lamborghini. And the answer was, no, we're not just purchasing the Lamborghini, we're purchasing the Lamborghini and the driver. So again, we're not looking at the state of the facility in which we're placing this replacement, but we're patching it. I'll use terms I used earlier today. We're placing a Band-Aid on a problem that continues every time we approach issues within City Hall. Now, you know, we were a part of the discussions about privatizing the joint sewage treatment plant. We went around and around for days. Now, this is not as big of a plant or a department, but it's very similar. So when we go to a sole source vendor, the relationships that we've built with the small or large parts vendors in and around this community will not be maintained. They'll be severed. So that dedication to economic development of the small business owners that you all repeat is not shown through the support of this contract. The pricing that has been able to be, the pricing that was negotiated through the relationships of the multiple people that have been in that role will no longer exist, will be held to the contract that we were given, all of those prices on the Excel. And when we talk to the Napa Auto Parts person, who I might remind you, the initial Napa Auto Parts vendor that we were working with quit, and we had a new Napa Auto Parts vendor who was not familiar with the previous conversation in the middle of a contract negotiation. Red flag. He said, we will still support other vendors. But how would you feel if a city you've worked with for over 20 some years faithfully decides to go with a sole source? Would you continue to negotiate the best pricing for the city you love? What about the employees that are watching? And they see that we don't mind getting rid of 2 lines. Yes, it's just 2 lines and they'll go to whatever department. But how do they feel about us supporting them and their tenure with the city? How does that sound? And some of you have not said a word about it. Now, some people said, I'm going to look at it, and we received the documents. I mean, I asked for the documents on the 8th. On the 8th, we received them 2 weeks later. Fine, it doesn't matter. We received them. But I talked to fellow council members, and some didn't even open the documents. They were unaware that the Excels were sent. Again, I always preach transparency and accountability because that's what we were voted in to do. And we've heard from the people. We've looked at the data, And I still cannot find a benefit. Well, first of all, I still don't understand what was going on with the required audits, because one person says they audited, next person says they've never seen the person in the audit room. You talk to another person. Some people have never seen, some people that said they're in the DPW department often, they've said they've never seen them in DPW in their lives. So there's inconsistencies. And when the inconsistencies consistently swirl around one person, it causes me to question the person. Yet no one else seems to question the person around whom all of this swirls. As council members, we must listen to our constituents. We must represent the people. And it doesn't matter if it's one person, if it's two people. If we'll put a patch on one department because it seems like a good idea, what's to say they will not find a fix for another department? It doesn't make sense. And I wish half of the people that called or wrote trusted us enough to come publicly and share it with you. And you guys have had those conversations too. They told me, you know. And I just hope when you go back to your golf, your tennis, or whatever you do with these people, that you're able to look them in the eye and say, I did what was best for you because I represent the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other discussion?
Thank you, President Skirnji. There are so many red flags in my mind with this legislation. I'm going to start big and just say on principle, I'm hard pressed to imagine a situation where a private company has the best interests of the ratepayers in mind. If they're a for-profit company, their number one obligation is to their own profits, the CEO's profits, right? We right now, in theory, the city functions with the ratepayers in mind. We want to have what's best for the residents of the city, our constituents, and the residents of the city at large. If we privatize an aspect of government, their loyalty no longer lies with the residents of the city. It's for their profit margin. That doesn't sit right with me. Secondly, the people who work in the storeroom right now are union workers. What also doesn't sit right with me is eliminating 2 union positions in favor of a transplant person who's going to come in from out of town, who has no familiarity with the city, to come in and, they're going to helicopter them in, and then that's the person who's going to be responsible for running the storeroom for the entire city of Binghamton. That doesn't sit right with me. I also would like to echo the sentiments of my colleague, Councilwoman Riley, in that there are inconsistencies here. And I know that on the surface, we can say, oh, it's cost saving. But I also agree with the first comment that I read, the first public comment. How much longer can we assume that costs will be lower? If we eliminate the competition and it's a sole source vendor, there's no thing. It's arbitrary. Then they could just raise the prices if they want to. And since they're a private company, we will no longer be getting the government discounts that we are currently afforded. This is not going to fix the issue that there's no oversight in this process, that it just outsources the oversight to a private company. And that's not a solution that gets at the root of the issue. We're supposed to have oversight over all of the departments in City Hall. Napa is not obligated to report to us. I don't think, we don't. Oh, quarterly meetings. That's right. I forgot. But they're in charge of however many different, the local vendor. I was imagining that with someone within the city, but this region is like several counties, right? If I remember correctly, that doesn't seem local to me. Those are not people who are intimately familiar with the equipment, the roads, the people that live here. I think that privatizing any aspect of government is a problem. Maybe there's an exception to that, but in general, it doesn't sit right with me to think that the accountability that Napa, a private company, has is basically zero. Their obligation is to themselves. What precedent does this set if we privatize this? Essentially, that's what we're doing, right? If we recognized how problematic it was to privatize the sewage treatment plant, then the same principles apply here. And I am going to vote a big fat no on this contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other discussion? Anything? Councilwoman Rosanetti, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. No, I hear everything that is being said. I appreciate all the comments from folks that have reached out to us, whether here or outside of here, and certainly my colleagues and all of their viewpoints. And, I have thought about this a lot. My understanding is that there will be no layoffs, and this has come about because there've been some challenges, some difficulties, some concerns, obviously. And so for me, it makes sense to try something different. And additionally, we do have, if I understand correctly, 60 days where we can revisit at that point and take a different path if that's what we choose to do.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other discussion? Councilman Strong.
Yeah, I just want to say, I struggle with this myself. I've said this before. I said this directly to the mayor this week. I still, whether this happens or not, I still have an issue with the, my accountant's mind. I still have an issue with the internal control and the oversight from a control standpoint of this segment of the city's budget. I struggle in the sense of, is this the right method? It may be a fix, it may be not. To me, it's a larger issue than who sources the parts. The people that run the city day to day, my sense is short term to go with them on the sourcing of it. But I think we need to, I don't know who acts as the audit committee for the city, but typically in an audit, there is a planning of the audit beforehand, some kind of a presentation to a board of sorts. I don't know if that's us or if we can accept or our committee can accept that role. I'm not sure who has that role, but I intend to find out. And I think that Bonadeo and company, who does our audit, should be part of this process. Whether they use internal control in their opinion of the audited financial statements, they certainly assess the control risk. And as a good auditor, when something rises to the surface of an issue, it's your responsibility to delve into that deeper. So my intention is to find out as part of, as they're getting ready to plan. I know our audit is later because of various reasons, but I'm assuming the planning process of the audit is getting underway as they close the books. And I think it's my intention to try to be involved in that process and have Bonadeo come down here before the audit, not necessarily just after the audit, and that we can discuss some of these issues with them. I've also been assured that 60 to 90 days, this could be changed if it's not working. I'm not sure what the mechanism is to assess that. But I think we need to find that out. So in the short term, I'm going to go with the day-to-day management of the city support, but I'm going to watch this and get our auditors involved in this process to see what their view is of the control process. And I think that they need to make that part of their audit for this year to specifically audit the internal control of that department.
Thank you, Councilman Strong. Councilwoman Creed.
Thank you, President Scringy. There's actually 2 points that I forgot to make that I would like to make now. First of all, well, I wanted to say I don't mean this patronizingly, but it's nice to hear from everyone. It's nice when, Councilwoman Riley and I are not the only voices, asking questions and trying to find things out. I do want to hear the opinions of people, even with those with whom I do not agree. In fact, especially the opinions of those with whom I do not agree. So there's 2 things that I forgot to mention. The first is that this piece of legislation is only sponsored by 3 council people. And I know that logistically you only need 2 on the committee to sponsor it, but isn't it telling that a minority of council members wanted to put their names on this piece of legislation? So that to me says that most of us are hesitant about this. Most of us did not feel like we wanted to put our stamp of approval on that. And so logistically, yes, that works for this to come to the floor, but I think that is worth considering. The other thing that I can't believe I forgot to mention this, but I actually took a tour of the whole that whole facility, the storeroom and the mechanics area. And, I was going around, and every time I bumped into an employee, I asked them, what do you think about this contract? And every single one of the employees in that facility said that they don't like this contract. They all said the same thing, the points that were brought up. We can do this too. We're new. We can do this job if we just had the appropriate training, more time to learn the system. There were a lot of union representatives who also said, yeah, this doesn't sit right with us. We don't want it. So maybe the commissioner likes this, but the actual employees do not like this contract. At least the ones that I was able to speak to, there was not a single person who was in favor of this contract. So in addition to being not loyal, what's the word I'm looking for? Accountable to the ratepayers, I'm also, as a city council representative, accountable to the employees that work here. And they know the day-to-day stuff best. And if they're not into this contract, then I have to trust their expertise as well. And further solidifying my disapproval of this contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you again, Council President Scringy. I do want to also echo the comments of my fellow council member, Aviva Friedman. I'm glad to hear from everyone. I do want to highlight, though, from Councilman Strawn, once this contract is executed, the inventory on hand will be sold. We will no longer be able to inspect the controls and the processes because they will be gone. So we should have done that before executing the contract. So if we do that tonight, the investigation that is great in terms of audit, in terms of processes, I'm looking at Councilman Scringy because he loves when I say processes. Excellent idea, but it's gone. And after 60 days, guess what? We can't get it back regardless, because we will have cashed that check. And I've heard, and I can't find proof, that the process has already started. So yes, it's a great thing that should have been done the 5 to 10 years in which all of this occurred. But if we sign it today, it moves forward. It was dated December 23rd. We asked to slow down the process so that we can investigate. And the more we dig, the more dirt we find, the more inconsistencies we find. But as soon as this passes, it's gone. And I just wanted to highlight that. I also wanted to highlight, we also heard a lot of, for lack of a better term, bashing of the employees, or saying that they're not necessarily the people that need to be in place to fix it. But I'd like to remind everyone, they were hired by the people they report to. So if they met the qualifications to be hired, and you are then subject to ensuring they are trained and go through the necessary steps to become certified by the different processes for our union, if you felt they were adequate enough to fill the position, don't come to council and then drag them through the mud. You can't assess me on items that you've never taught me. You can't evaluate me if the objectives and the goals were never presented. If everyone in there self-taught or learned cardiograph on their own, I commend them for seeking that understanding on their own. But it goes back to a systemic failure. If you put me here and not trained me, then how can you fairly assess me? And I just want you all to think about that part in the video as well. I just wanted to highlight that as Councilmember Freeman brought up some things. It's not fair. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other discussion? Sitting in this chair, I usually try to not provide anything, just given the nature of the seat, but I will in this case. I appreciate everyone's comments, and I think they're all very good points all around. I'll just touch on a few things. Number one of my biggest concerns, I'm not even sure if I'm listed as a sponsor on there because I was originally uncertain myself. And at the expense of being direct, I don't want to repeat anything that all the good points that everyone said, but I will say this. For me, we as a government, we are essentially left in a binary situation, which is that the reality of it is that as it relates to the entire process, the internal controls that need to be in place along that process, they just aren't there. And at the expense of being frank, they have not been there for a long time. And when I say a long time, I don't mean 4 months, I mean years. So the reality of it is that the binary choice that we're left with is either putting a control system in place internally that has the requisite internal controls required to be able to assess and reassess over time and ensure that financial losses and losses that are difficult to maybe even impossible to quantify at this point for years of that are also upheld. That being said, the switch for me is the fact that we have 60 days to move in and move out. The binary choice, calling it for what it is, that we are presented with is essentially the following: get a system in place internally with the internal controls required, or outsource it. That's it. And the reality of it is that at the end of the day, even with the sell-off of inventory from a process perspective, I am actually way more worried about internal controls related to how we will do this going forward, not relative to the inventory that's going to get sold off. Because quite frankly, I am uncertain as to whether we're actually going to get even any substantive information about that. I am also going to suggest on behalf of my colleagues here in this body that at the 30-day mark, whatever the immediate work session is afterward, that a representative from NAPA come down to inform us of what has been done over the first month, so we can get a general sense of where we are as we're moving in to the 60-day period, because I think that's important information for all 7 of us. So at the expense of being frank, I think a lot of us are saying something similar in slightly different directions. But the immediacy of this situation, I think, gives an opportunity to see if this does work. It may work, it may not. And I was very vocal with respect to outsourcing during the entire discussion with respect to the sewage treatment plant about my lack of support for privatization. So the fact that we have this 60-day period, I think is crucial for us here. I think we need a gut check. And if it doesn't work, then we need to exercise our contractual right, if this passes at that point, to be able to pull out and then put those internal controls in place internally. And I'll just add that. Councilman Burns.
Thank you, Mr. President. I predict that it's going to work. But it would work with our own employees, with the new system. Just teach them the system that we want. So what we're doing now is not giving them the chance. We're saying, no, we're going to bring in a new system. You have no chance of looking at the new system. So go away. And now we're going to say, did it work? Yeah, of course it was going to work. So, thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Ryan.
Again, if you look at the contract, it does talk about severing the ties, but it does not talk, which would be our portion, how we would operate once we severed the ties. Would we then have to buy inventory and stock it back in? Those are things that we would have to determine and well, Dan would have to determine with his team. And so we can't pass. We've had a hard time having meetings about sidewalks in 30 to 60 days. So I'm hesitant to believe that we would be able to truly evaluate a system, back out of a contract and rebound after 60 days, because we have not discussed how that looks. We have not created a plan. We've already removed the 2 employees at this. If it goes the way you guys are discussing, 60 days in, they're gone. The inventory is gone. So if we sever the ties, then what? We have a snowstorm. Who's there? Where are the parts? What are we going to do? Let's be realistic. That's not reality. Yes, we can sever a contract, but then what? We have no plan. So it sounds good, but it's not realistic. We need time. We need time with this. And again, I know it's second read legislation and I won't go there tonight. But these are the kind of decisions that will shape or affect the city for years to come. You could say 60 days, but what happens after the 60 days? What happens within the 60 days? You've already shifted 2 people's entire world. And I'd like to also highlight, the gentleman here spoke that we would have one of the employees available to us if there was a snowstorm. How many of you know that on Monday night, they called in one of the 2 storekeepers emergently, because we have an on-call process in their contract. And he stayed from 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. because the snowplows kept needing parts. And you guys heard them dropping those things in the middle of the night. I don't know what it was. It sounded like an explosion every time they hit my street. But that man was there to support that team. This contract doesn't speak to that. We heard it verbally, but who's going to answer the phone at 6 a.m., 2 a.m. when we need replacement parts for the snowplows that our constituent just talked about? Where is it? It's not there. Think about that. And yes, it's second read. We can do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Is the question called? Question's been called. Clerk will call the roll.
Councilwoman Resnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Nay.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Nay.
Councilman Burns,
Nay.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
President Scaringi.
Aye.
That's 4 ayes, 3 nays, Riley, Friedman, and Burns.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move to first read legislation and the preferred agenda. Do any members of council wish to remove any requests for legislation? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, please proceed.
Okay, so the first item on tonight's preferred agenda is introductory ordinance 23-36, considered in the Finance Committee. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 general fund budget for ambulance billing charges.
Discussion. Mr. Clerk.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 23-39, considered in Finance. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 general fund budget for on-call pay and PFRS retirement.
Discussion. Mr. Clerk.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 23-40, considered in Finance, and this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 refuse fund budget for gas and diesel.
Discussion. Mr. Clerk.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 23-42, considered in Finance, and this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 Binghamton Johnson City Joint Sewage Treatment Facility budget for the 5-year cycle cleaning of the digester.
Discussion. Mr. Clerk.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 23-43, considered in the Employees Committee, and this is an ordinance to amend the chapter 124 personnel policies of the Code of the City of Binghamton.
Discussion. Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President. For those of you that remember, I was really appalled by this legislation when it was presented during City Council, during our business meeting on February 6th. But I was able to talk to people that if they were hired now would have been impacted. And I do want to highlight that usually in negotiations, all of us have been in that role. If you come from another place and you already have accrued 4 weeks, you want the same vacation when you accept the new job. And it's part of the negotiation package. My concern, knowing this administration, I wanted to be certain that it wasn't unfairly distributed to the new hires, particularly when we have members of the administration that had to use vacation and sick leave and the like for their own personal reasons, because they were not afforded such leniency when they were hired. Now, what is in this contract or in this legislation that I want to highlight to everyone, if the mayor does decide to allocate these days up front, the employee will not accrue any additional days. So it's not a bonus. They will continue to accrue at the rate of other employees until they get to that level that they would have been if they stay in the position the same length of time. Now, I would have liked to have some type of penalty added if they leave us, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to support the legislation as it is, because we do understand that in this day and age, we want quality employees. And if they are quality, we want to support them. And I just wanted to make sure everyone understood my change in my stance and my vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other discussion? Mr. Clerk.
Okay, the next item on the preferred agenda is introductory ordinance 23-44, considered in the Finance Committee. And this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 Binghamton Johnson City Joint Sewage Treatment Facility budget for water line.
Discussion. Mr. Clerk.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 23-45, considered in the Finance Committee, and this is an ordinance to amend the 2022 Binghamton Johnson City Joint Sewage Treatment Facility budget for local system cost.
Discussion. Mr. Clerk.
Next, we have introductory ordinance 23-46, considered in the Finance Committee, and this is an ordinance to repurchase 72 Court Street from Vision 72 LLC.
Discussion. Mr. Clerk.
Next, we have introductory resolution 23-11, considered in Finance, and this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept the 2023 Broome County Youth Bureau budget grant for summer fund program.
Discussion. Mr. Clerk.
Next, we have introductory resolution 23-12, considered in the Public Works and Parks Committee. And this is a resolution authorizing the Rumble Ponies to conduct fireworks displays in 2023.
Discussion. Mr. Clerk.
Next, we have introductory resolution 23-13, considered in the Finance Committee. And this is a resolution authorizing the city of Binghamton to accept a Restore New York grant from Empire State Development for 187 Clinton Street.
Discussion. Mr. Clerk.
And the last item on tonight's preferred agenda is introductory resolution 23-14, considered in the Finance Committee. And this is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Chianis and Anderson Architects, PLLC, for additional architectural and engineering services at Maravno Stadium.
Discussion. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the preferred agenda. Motion by Councilman Scanlon. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Strawn. All those in favor will say aye as the clerk calls the roll, or nay.
Councilwoman Resnetti.
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
And President Scaringi.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. At this time, Chair recognizes Councilman Strawn for the purpose of a motion in relation to introductory ordinance 23-34.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. President. I ask council for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 23-34. An ordinance to amend the 2022 BJCJ SDP budget to create a capital reserve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Strawn, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. Discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scaringi. Sorry, in my packet, I don't think oh, I'm sorry. I do have it.
You're okay. No discussion or? Okay. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question, Mr. President.
Question's been called. Mr. Clerk.
Councilwoman Resnetti.
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman.
Aye.
Councilman Burns. Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon.
Aye.
And President Scaringi.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Chair recognizes Councilman Strawn for the purpose of a motion in relation to introductory ordinance 23-35.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 23-35. This is an ordinance to amend the 2022 general fund police budget for various items.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Strawn, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. Discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scaringi. You all know how I feel about this. I think that I'll say whatever it is I say every single time. Our police officers, most of them make more than some department heads. And so to fund things like holiday pay, incentive pay, which we already allocated ARPA money for incentive pay for our police officers, which I think was criminal. I am so sad that I wasn't at that meeting because that was extremely upsetting. I don't think that the police need to make more money. Do we have data to show that if we give the police more than $75,000 a year, it makes our community safer? I've never seen a study that says that. We have so many police officers that make so much money already. This is not what makes our communities safer. I don't know how much of our taxpayers' dollars we need to dump into the police department before we realize that just throwing money at the same things we always do doesn't make our community safer. Things like housing and youth programming and access to food and equity, good jobs, stability. Those are things that make our community safer, not paying our police more money. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other discussion? Seeing none, is the question called? Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question.
question.
All right.
Question's been called.
Councilwoman Resnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Nay.
Councilwoman Freeman,
Nay.
Councilman Burns,
I'd just like to point out that we're not adding any money to the police department. We're just transferring from some lines to other lines. But I say yay.
Councilman Strawn.
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon
Aye.
and President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, 2 nays, Riley and Friedman.
This time, Chair recognizes Councilwoman Rezinetti for the purposes of a motion with respect to introductory ordinance 23-37.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consideration for introductory ordinance 23-37. An ordinance to amend the code of the city of Binghamton, chapter 410 zoning to add additional language.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Rezinetti, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. Discussion. Councilwoman Freeman.
Thank you, President Scringy. I had mixed feelings about this. I did not sponsor this legislation. I understand the intent. And I go back and forth between legislation that seems to target students. I'm saying seems to, right? This is clearly in reference to housing units that are more commonly occupied by Binghamton University students. So I'm not going to pretend like I don't know what that is. And I know that there was that controversial piece of legislation about the rezoning for the student housing, and it's, I don't know. I go back and forth, to be honest with you, about this. I believe that I support this because it seems like a safety issue. I want to be clear that we shouldn't be passing legislation that's hostile toward university students, because the university is in large part an economic engine for the area. That's what brought me here. And I don't want students to feel unwelcome or that we're targeting them. However, I also understand the intent of this legislation as a safety issue with parties that happen in basements with no fire escape, and there's maybe underage drinking and things like that. So I will hesitantly support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Morales.
Thank you, Council President. Again, as you can see, I also did not sponsor this legislation. And I want the record to be clear that the city has put forth various legislation to support student housing in certain areas, even to the point of amending how single-family homes can be broken up and utilized in certain districts in the city. So now that we've given that clearance, now we want to go back and say, you can't use your basement or your communal space as you desire. So it bothers me because I always talk about the system. If you think about how things were shaped or written or codified, if we want to even say, to support certain aspects of the change in the housing stock and the residents in Binghamton, But then we add additional legislation to then police the housing stock we supported, that we changed legislation to increase. I have a problem with that because that means the foresight and the thought and planning said change in the legislation wasn't done, because we said that this will happen if you increase one's ability to house residents in certain types of property. Now here we are talking about what happens when you change buildings to house certain types of residents in certain types of property. I said this. Now we want to go back and fix it. My problem is, yes, it is dangerous. But then what are we going to say about the rooftops where the students hang out? Because we've seen people fall off, right? Go back to your news report. So are we going to then put forth legislation to ban rooftops and activities on rooftops in certain subsets of in certain districts within the city? Maybe so. We put forth legislation to talk about how many people with red cups can be in a building, and if someone is underage, you remember that? It was about a year or two ago. The legislation where if a cop thinks someone's underage with all the people drinking out front, they can stop and then arrest the owner of the property, which again was problematic because we know systemically who would be targeted if they have people in front of their house with the red cups. So again, what we do, we put forth legislation to appease a subset of the population. Then we put forth additional legislation to enforce certain subsets of the population. And then city council representatives in these districts have to suffer the consequences and receive all the calls from the parents and the students and the landlords. If we would just sit and think how to, I mean, we have a planning department. What do we want the city to look like? How would it best be managed? What should the different zoning, we just need to take time, but similar to a basketball, we're always playing defense. And so I was worried about this, because what if it's a property that has been given approval as a multiple unit dwelling for seniors in the 3rd district? They can't get together. And I'll give you an example. There's one on Walnut Street, and there is a TV room where these older adults congregate in their wheelchairs and the like. I'm not stereotyping older adults because they are just as vital. But, I'm looking across, they run, they walk. So I'm not saying that. But will they be beholden to this legislation? Are we going to go back and then tell the owners of the properties with the seniors in the building they can no longer have congregate spaces? And so I have questions about this. I keep going back and forth if I want to hold it over. I don't want to hold it over. But I'm very troubled because, again, we don't know how we will move forward. We have the legislation, but how will it be implemented and to whom is my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Question called. Question's been called.
Councilwoman Resnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Nay.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Councilwoman Riley changed my mind. Nay.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strawn,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 5 ayes, 2 nays, Riley and Friedman.
Chair recognizes Councilman Strawn for the purpose of a motion with respect to introductory ordinance 23-38.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 23-38, an ordinance to amend the 2022 water budget for various items.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Strawn, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Call the question.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilwoman Resnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns,
Aye.
Councilman Strong,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
and President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
At this time, Chair recognizes Councilman Strawn for the purpose of a motion with respect to introductory ordinance 23-41.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask council for unanimous consideration of introductory ordinance 23-41. It's an ordinance to amend the 2022 sewer fund budget for ban interest.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Strawn, seconded by Councilwoman Resnetti. Discussion. Seeing none, is the question called?
Question.
Question's been called. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilwoman Resnetti,
Aye.
Councilwoman Riley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Aye.
Councilman Burns.
Aye.
Councilman Strong,
Aye.
Councilman Scanlon,
Aye.
President Scringy.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 0 nays.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you for those that came down and took the time to speak with us, and for those who are watching and submitted. At this point, I will turn to Councilman Burns for communication from council members.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'm running out to the forum to see cats, and my wife is waiting for me at the front door, so I'm leaving. But thank you all very much.
Have a good time.
Chair recognizes Councilman Strawn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very quickly, I just wanted to make I thank the comments earlier. I just wanted to make a acknowledgement, and I don't know if apology is the right word. On Saturday, the 25th, last Saturday, I was in communication with the mayor, and we had this issue last year on the hills, on the mountainside of the south side. And he was honest. I mean, the National Weather Service didn't even predict what exactly happened in that short burst on Saturday morning, and the severity which it caused, that slipperiness and things like that. They try to pre-treat those roads, and they've done a great job in the storms and everything else. So, I don't want to apologize for DBW, but the was in contact with the mayor's office, and in essence, even the National Weather Service missed that burst of snow and ice and what we got that morning, and they got on it as soon as they could. And sometimes it's hard for them to get up those hills in hindsight after the fact. So I apologize to the residents of the south side and some of the mountain areas of the city. But it was, Mother Nature kind of took over that morning and put something on us that we weren't expecting. I think the storm yesterday, we were on that pretty quickly, and I know there's some more weather coming Friday. So as a general rule, I think we try to stay proactive in those areas, but missed that one on the 25th a little bit, and we will try to stay on top of it as much as we can. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Strawn. Chair recognizes Councilman Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of things. I think the DPW did a great job. Was it yesterday? With the snowstorm we had overnight. They cleared the roads good, and it was pretty quick. So kudos to the men and women of the DPW in the parks. If I could wave a magic wand, I would double the amount of police officers we have in the city of Binghamton and double their salary. But that's not a possibility. So I certainly, God bless the men and women of the Binghamton Police Department. They keep us safe. Last thing I have is we lost an icon. Dave Lindsay passed away. Family friend for 60 plus years. I condolences to his wife Jean and his children, Shelley and Dave Jr. Did a lot of great things for the area. He was a tragedy in his family, and he really did as much as he could for the area. So condolences to the family. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Resnetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of quick things. I too want to thank DPW for the hard work that they're doing. It's never easy. And I think they've been great. I also want to thank the community for stepping up. I saw people helping each other when it was icy the other day. And just always, I think it's important to highlight those strengths of our community. Additionally, today's March 1st, so hopefully we're over that winter hump. I doubt it, but happy March to all. It is also today started the Women's Month. Don't they call it Women's History Month? That's what it is. And I think it's important that we always highlight the achievements of women in our everywhere, and our achievements have been huge. We have made tremendous strides, and I think it is important for all of us to always support each other. What else? Lastly, St. Pat's Parade is coming up this weekend. I know a lot of people are very excited about it. I hope the weather will be good to us all. I hope that everyone comes out and celebrates our community, has fun, and does it in a safe way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Resnick. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Riley.
Thank you, Council President. Again, I want to thank all of the members of DPW for their collective work, not only with the snowplows, but working together to make sure we heard their voices. I was very proud of the people that reached out and engaged us through this process. Unfortunately, it didn't go the way we hoped, but that means we have work to do. And as council members, for the rest of your term, you have the ability to show them that you are dedicated to doing such. Awesome. I also wanted to highlight again their swift response. Monday night and Tuesday, I talked a lot about the people that went in and worked overtime, the truck drivers, the store people, the what have you, just over and over. We have to shout out to them for their diligence during the storm. We do have a contact number, and I thought I had it, and we will make sure it is publicly facing, so everyone has it. I won't even talk about that app. We won't talk about the app. I'll give you a phone number. So we want to make sure you have that information, because it's important to call in. I myself called in, and I did not say who I was, but I asked, is it based upon the tax rates of the property, the way you handle the snow? And so they answered resoundingly no, and they came, but that's neither here nor there. Again, we just ended Black History Month. It was a great month. We had loads of celebrations throughout the community and across the country. It is a time, again, to celebrate and cherish the history of those that have fought and continue to fight for equity, to live in this space. And that, I'm saying a lot without saying it, but happy Black History Month. We move right into Women's History Month, and we had a great flag raising celebration this afternoon. So please check out the newscast and post it on your social media in support of your councilwomen colleagues that represented council today. The theme this year is celebrating women who tell our stories. And I wanted specifically, I know I said it earlier, but it's important that we celebrate women in all facets of life, regardless of what they're doing currently. The fact that women are able to bring life and continue to pour into others' lives on a continual basis is significant. So as we celebrate women, remember that we also highlight and celebrate the marginalized women, the cis and the transgender women, and the incarcerated women who fight for their lives and try to protect themselves and their families on a daily basis. Finally, I want to thank, and Lee laughed at me earlier, I received a gift. And unfortunately, in my excitement, I took it home. So I want to thank the person that dropped off a beautiful picture for me. I will post it on my social media to accredit you properly. It gets hard, and we try to answer every call and every email. And it's the small things that make you realize, sorry, sir. It was under the limit that we signed. Oh, it's in the ethics contract that we were supposed to pass. I'll bring that back next time we convene. So yes, it was a token of appreciation. And again, it helps to hear and see that people value the work that we do, you know? So I thank you, and you will see the official thanks, the official note of gratitude on my social media. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman McCready.
Thank you, President Springy. I have a few shout outs. First of all, there was I don't think I mentioned this yet, but there was a new restaurant that opened up on the north side, and they said, they reached out and they asked, hey, can we have a garbage can? And so I forwarded their concern, and the next day there was a garbage can there. Then the business owner reached out again and said, can we have a bike rack? And I said, let me forward your concern. And that bike rack is going to be installed shortly. So shout out to also to DPW and also to Pat McGinnis as well for getting the ball rolling on that, or the bike rolling. Har har. So get it? The bike rack, bike roll. Okay. Not my best work. Okay. The North Side Assembly meeting is going to be tomorrow at 6 o'clock at the Centenary I always mess up the name, Shenango Centenary United Methodist Church on Shenango Street. So anyone who lives on the north side and wants to get more involved with current affairs is welcome to come. I was fortunate enough to be able to attend the flag raising earlier today. And something that I mentioned at that flag raising is that anytime we have a history month, it's because that group has been historically underrepresented, undervalued, overlooked, oppressed, marginalized, etc. And so in celebrating and uplifting various groups like Black History Month, Women's History Month, we also have to recognize the historical harm that has been done to those groups and recognize that that harm is multiplied depending on if someone occupies more than one of those identities. Black women or poor women or LGBTQ women or Indigenous women, disabled women, all of those people for whom their voices are doubly or triply not heard generally. So in lifting up women, we also have to pay attention to women who occupy more than one marginalized identity, whose voice has historically been silenced. So it was a lovely flag raising. If I had a magic wand, I would make Councilman Scanlon explain how he can justify spending a quarter of the city's budget on the police and how that in any way would make any of us safer. But fortunately for you, Councilman Scanlon, I don't have a magic wand either. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Love the collegiality of this dais. I really quickly just want to say thank you again for everyone who came down and took the time to speak with us. I do want to thank DPW and Parks for the very quick immediacy they had with the storm last night. It actually looked like it was coming in a little more with respect to snow than we thought. Please, as long as the weather is good, come out and enjoy Binghamton and support our local businesses, our small businesses, and have a good time responsibly on parade day. My deepest condolences to Mrs. Lindsay and the entire Lindsay family. For anyone who knew Mr. Lindsay, knew that he was, to say he was a pretty amazing man is to not give him his due. And condolences and prayers to him. And I also want to, lastly, as probably seen by some of you in the news this week, I want to thank Mayor Cram for his direction and working with me, as well as all of my colleagues here, to finally get the lockdown law reinstated on the residential side. I know I'm probably going to miss a lot of people here, but at least departmentally, our police, our fire, corp council, mayor's office, code, zoning, vacancy, DPW. There were so many. We finally had our first exercise on the residential side, and I cannot even begin to tell you, working with residents and working with the mayor, as well as obviously corp council, for probably going on a little over a couple of years now on this. It was great to see things get back around. So I just wanted to thank everyone that was involved in that process. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Councilwoman Riley, seconded by Councilman Scanlon. We are adjourned.